Hello, this is Dan Ferissi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Commercial Integrator here at the HD-Base-T Alliance booth at ISE 2025, joined by my friends Andrew Gross and Michael Goldman and Keith Kennedy. We're going to be talking about standards. Before we really get into it, though, would each of you like to introduce yourselves in brief?
Sure. Hi, Dan. How are you? I'm Keith Kennedy, Managing Director of ProITAV. We're the world's leading OEM/ODM developer of AV signal management and unified communications products.
Thanks, Keith. Michael Goldman. I am the CEO of a consulting firm called CDA Communications. We design modern workspace solutions for large corporate clients, Fortune 500s around the globe.
All right, thanks for having me, Dan. I'm Andrew Gross. I run global sales at a company called Xyte. What we do is we provided the world's first cloud-based standard for remote-based monitoring and management of AV gear.
As I said, the conversation is standards. You mentioned cloud standards. HD-Base-T is a standard. Why don't we just level set, though, and talk about the value of standards, why they seem to be getting more attention, and the value they potentially can bring and have already brought to our channel?
Yeah, no, I'll start because I've been in this industry for a while now, and what I've seen is the great part about it is that it is an integrated space with a lot of different types of manufacturers, right? Everybody's able to make their own thing and do something unique and special because every customer and integrator has a unique need for our gear and allows them to mix and match. The problem that arises with that is obviously interoperability or lack thereof. And that leads everything from video to audio, but also now, of course, where we're coming from at Xyte is monitoring management and visibility of all that data. So the importance of standards to me is that you can maintain this sort of agnostic approach to finding the best manufacturer for that need or for that fit, while ensuring interoperability between everything from the video to the audio transport, and now from us, of course, in the monitoring and management side of things.
So I'm going to give you the perspective from the end user, because I work for some very large companies managing their global standards. The way we work today is very different than the way we worked 6 years ago. 6 years ago, 7 years ago, AV was a luxury. Every room was different. Now, if AV is not easy to use, you can't do your job, right? So what do standards do? Standards make it easy for anyone to go into any room and do their work, and not focus on what button do I need to press, and oh my gosh, is my presentation going to work, or oh my gosh, are we going to get the video call established on the other end of the line. So it makes life easy for people, and what it does is it takes AV from the unique and brings it into something that becomes a productivity multiplier, right? At the end of the day, why do people buy technology? Because they want to accomplish more work in a shorter amount of time. So it truly becomes a productivity tool, because if we have standards and people know how to use things and we have a consistent user experience, anybody can walk into a room, connect their laptop, get going, have a meeting, and focus on their business.
Well said, Michael. So as an OEM/ODM hardware manufacturer, which means we're at the beginning of the chain, we make things for many of the brands that are here at ISE and all over the world. So there are different ways of doing things and different applications, different markets, and different problems that our customers are trying to solve for their customers, okay? Like Michael and the Fortune 5 companies that he is doing consulting work for. So we have to take all the different ways of doing things that all are valid. They all have reasons for being. You know, Valens and HD-Base-T being a big part of that, along with many others. And we have to implement that in hardware with the right connectivity and ability to enhance either the lifestyle or productivity, because it's also lifestyle, because some people do use these things in their homes, and then make it to where it can be implemented by the manufacturers, by the integrators, and used by the end users. So that means even though there might be some underlying difference in technology or connectivity, there should still be common APIs. There should still be common ways of exposing all of the things that need to be used so that they can be used by Michael's clients or exposed in the cloud management systems like what Xyte makes.
There's so much to follow up on, but I guess I'll go to you first, Michael. You mentioned, the appetite for scalability, simplicity. You're not going to have a whole series of separate bespoke rooms where everything is done a la carte. And I mean, that's really important for integrators these days, right? If they're trying to make margin and also be time effective across these sites, not just in terms of the end user experience, but also the integrators themselves, they need to scale up based on standards and interoperability, not bespoke and a la carte single rooms, right?
100%. And if let's unpack that a bit. Years ago, when I started working with enterprise clients that had 500 rooms or more, the challenge was, how do I get hundreds of rooms installed in a year? One client came to me, a bank, and said, we can't do more than 300 rooms the way that we're doing them. Help me. And one of the things that I helped them do was come up with standards that were repeatable. Once you have that, the technology people could work with real estate, understand where leases are expiring, understand when they need to move. They already know what the system's going to be, right? So now they can pre-buy, pre-build, test, shrink wrap, put it in a warehouse in the right section of the world, right, in the right region. Now, when it comes time for construction, they do the construction, integrator comes on site, does the field end work, they ship in the pre-built racks, they connect things up. They've already tested the rack, so the testing period is shorter. The rooms get spun up faster, and all of a sudden you can start to go from 300 rooms to 500 rooms. Carry that further out. One of the neat things I got to do in my past life was work with someone that was trying to deploy 10,000 rooms. And they were trying to develop a system in a box solution, right? And I learned some good and some bad, but listen, from pain and bad, you come up smarter and more intelligent. And if you can be disciplined and you stop worrying about this brand and this brand and this brand from the user's perspective, and you worry about what am I trying to accomplish, what's the experience, you can come up with something that scales. And during the pandemic, I had the good fortune to work with a very large company to help them figure out how do you deploy 12,000 rooms across the globe. And standards played a huge role in that.
Quick thing on that, Michael, because and it's a great point, right? We're talking a lot about day one of the integration, the bundling, right? The usability of this gear. Standards is going to, of course, fix that. I think we have a lot of answers today in this industry that solve that, right? A question back to you also is like, what about day two, right? Or day 365? Because if you lose out on the standard on day one and you don't make that standards adoption on day one, that's going to affect you down the line for a long time to come. So what are you seeing in that second phase?
So the larger companies have quickly realized that many of them are in technology debt, right? And that's a problem that gets your day two, because what they have doesn't scale. So now they have to figure out two things. They have to step back and figure out what does the future look like. When they develop their standard, the other piece that becomes really important is software and the network. Not the AV network, the network, right? Because if I have many things deployed all over my estate, I don't want to send specialists to every room to touch everything. So my standard is a new design, an upgrade path, a software path, leveraging the corporate network, and a maintenance path, right? And the other thing that's so key when it comes to the maintenance path is, walk around the show floor, and for a million years we were all involved in this to a degree a long time ago, and said, hey, I've got a great way to monitor something. I can only monitor, stuff made by this brand. And that's super limiting, right? And the other, people from these manufacturers, the wisdom they would sell is, I can tell you how often the projector's used, or I can tell you, that you need video conferencing in this room. Roll the clock forward. We know every room needs video. So I don't really the data's okay, but that's not helpful. What's really helpful is, how are people using space and technology? How are we spending our money? What does our refresh look like? What do our leases look like? And how do we combine all this information to drive more value back into the business so that we can intelligently spend our money with things that go in fast, are easy to use, and have maximum uptime? Because that's the other piece. It doesn't help me even if I can connect to a device over the network. If I have to go to 12 places to look at those devices, I may as well be running around with SneakerNet, right? So standards, I believe, play a huge role at the corporate or institutional level, at the manufacturer level, as Keith was describing, and I'm sure you're going to talk about it a bit on the monitoring and management level, right? because you have to have all of these things in order to ensure that your rooms are running, your people are having a good experience, right? And that business is being done, because that's why you buy technology. Gone are the days of this is cool, I'm going to go buy something.
So again, well said, Michael. But to add to that, you need to leverage the standards and also build in the ability to differentiate and support different applications and solve different problems. Because not every room is the same, not every corporation is the same, not every integrator is the same, and not every manufacturer that we deal with is the same, or brand that we deal with is the same. So we have to be able to leverage the standards and apply them in different ways that at the same time can still be able to shine through and provide a consistent user experience no matter how it's being deployed and monitored and dealt with by all of these companies. You almost have to save people from themselves by making sure that there are things in place that the integrator can use to put that in place and make the end user experience the right one.
On the monitoring and management side, on the cloud side, I think few, if any, are better positioned to speak to that than you are and Xyte is. So do you want to just talk about how standards play a role in that respect?
Sure. So even just in the last 4+ years that I think the show's even been here in Barcelona, we've seen this crazy shift, as I'm sure you guys have seen in working with the manufacturers too, of manufacturers are making their own cloud, right? And that's awesome. That's not a nag on, I shouldn't be adopting a standard. That's actually a great sign that they are recognizing a need from a customer or customers. They're recognizing the need from the industry that their stuff must be, it's table stakes, to be monitored or managed, or at least gather data into the cloud. And plus, it's a support feature, right? If manufacturer, it's their name on the box, they're going to get the call, they have to be able to support that customer, that manufacturer. The next phase in that, right, because that's really phase one, is get your stuff talking. The next phase is the standards adoption, right? It's the same thing we saw in video, it's the same thing we saw in audio. People were making video products, people are making audio products, and then there were standards that helped them bring them together. We're here, at least at Xyte, that we're in that phase now where manufacturers are building their cloud solutions, and now it's time to be part of that standard. Because this industry is changing, our customers' demands are changing, and we're there trying to provide solutions and designs and products that are supporting those vastly changing needs.
You mentioned that standards are the native language of IT, and IT are increasingly being empowered in this community. They're not accustomed to like a heterogeneous blend of a whole bunch of different things. I think you're probably well positioned to speak to that, Michael, that they're expecting uniformity. They're not expecting this and that all over the place.
Absolutely. So I tend to work with people in the IT stack more so than people in the AV stack. Even though AV falls under IT in a lot of organizations, they think differently. So when I got to the consulting world and I started to meet with people on my team, everybody spoke of an AV network. And I walk around here and I see people talking about AV networks. With my client set, I'm not allowed to put an AV network in. Everything goes on the corporate network on the right VLAN. Everything has a plan. They have network engineers. They have service and support tied to it because it's critical communication in their world. And because of that, things have to be done in a way that they can ensure uptime. Because at the end of the day, I'm spending money to make money. I'm spending money to get product to market faster, right? Whatever my challenges or however I count money, right? That's what I'm after. And all of this neat stuff here, that's the end goal. So one of the things Keith was saying is, look, there's different applications, there's different ways to solve them. They're all okay. What we need, someone from my position, are the right tools, the right buckets of tools to solve the different challenges we're trying to solve. I can still have the experience look the same, right? I can decouple the experience from the way I build it on the back end. Now, the reason why I want to build it the same on the back end, so I pick whatever the right buckets are and I want to replicate that, because if someone runs into a problem, I can sort the problem out faster. There is nothing worse than having 5 rooms that do the same thing and they're all built different with different parts. The other thing is that if I'm after maximum uptime, now I need to keep 5 times as many things on the shelf. So if I standardize my design, I standardize my experience, and I standardize the way things are built, I should be able to consolidate the different parts and pieces. I should be able to streamline my procurement process. I should be able to get better support from the manufacturers that I'm choosing because I'm committing to them. My install team should be able to deploy faster and better with fewer punch list items because there's familiarity, right? We're doing the same thing over and over again. That doesn't mean that most of the projects that I do, I would say 90% of the spaces that go into these campuses are the same, right? They hit us within a given bucket. However, we still have a theater, we still have unique spaces. That all exists. The difference is we're still trying to draw from the same manufacturers and still draw from the right parts and piece buckets because we want good partners and we want something that's resilient and tested and tried, and then it all needs to work back with whatever platform or however we're going to manage it. And if we're really smart and we're really looking forward, everything should be able to be provisioned, configured, or set up with near zero touch.
Anything you would add on the hardware side, Keith, as we begin to wrap up the conversation?
Well, again, well said, Michael, and I echo what you say. It behooves the manufacturers, especially at our level, to make sure that even though we are supplying different ways of doing things and we're able to solve different problems, that we provide the hooks, we provide the API, we follow the standards, and we make it to where we can provide maximum uptime and provide the things that he needs to provide that user experience, and then also be able to provide the information that the cloud-based management system can then take and further that down to day 365 or day 10,000.
Well, whether it's standardized cloud management or connectivity solutions like HD-based-T, it's very clear standards are going to continue to be top of mind and gain even more attention. It's going to facilitate better outcomes, which I think is what all of us are committed to. Thank you so much, Andrew and Michael and Keith, for joining me. My name is Dan Ferissi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Commercial Integrator, here at ISE 2025 at the HD-based-T Alliance booth, doing thought leadership interviews with some of our industry's brightest minds and leading organizations.